Welcome back to the Suspense Story podcast. Sometimes a story comes along that just grabs you and won't let go. And just another dead girl underwater is one of those stories for me.
What is it about this one that got to you?
Well, first of all, it's told from the perspective of the victim. And she's already dead.
Wow. That's an interesting approach for sure. Starting with the end in a way.
Right. Like, have you ever imagined being able to hear the thoughts of someone who's no longer with us?
I mean, not really. It's kind of a chilling thought when you put it like that.
It is. And the story doesn't shy away from that. It starts with the narrator telling us, matter-of-factly, that she's been dead for 33 hours, 6 minutes, and 29 seconds.
Whoa, that's quite an opening. Just throws you right into it, doesn't it?
It does. No time to ease into the situation. You're immediately confronted with the finality of death.
It definitely sets a certain tone, doesn't it? Like, what's the author trying to do here?
Right. And that question lingers throughout the entire story. We know she's dead, but how did it happen? Was it an accident, or is there something more sinister going on?
Okay, so where does the story actually take place then? Like, give us a little bit of the background.
Sure. It all unfolds during a high school camping trip. A group of students sneaks out to a party by the lake, and our narrator disappears.
Ah, I see. Classic setup for a mystery. Isolated location, a group of people with secrets, someone goes missing.
Exactly. And then we start getting these conflicting accounts from her classmates. Little details that don't quite add up, suspicious behavior from a teacher, even hints about the girl's own anxieties leading up to her death.
Ooh, okay. So it's like a puzzle with all these pieces, but you're not sure how they fit together yet.
Right. And one of the first pieces we get is from Zoe, the narrator's friend. She claims she left the party early, while the narrator stayed with Zoe's twin brother, Tom.
Okay, but there's got to be more to it than that, right? Like, it can't be that simple.
Of course not. Witnesses say they saw Zoe and Tom leaving the party together for a few minutes that night.
Interesting. So already we have some inconsistencies in the story. Why would they lie about that?
And then there's the physical evidence. They find Tom's skin under the narrator's fingernails.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's pretty damning evidence. Can't really explain that away easily.
He insists he barely spoke to her, but that physical evidence suggests otherwise.
Right, and we have to consider her own anxieties about the party and being around these guys. Something doesn't feel right.
Yeah, and it makes you think about the social dynamics at play.
Yeah.
Even in death, the narrator is keenly aware of the jealousy, the rumors, and how easily girls' stories get twisted in situations like this.
Absolutely. It's like she's watching it all unfold from a distance, seeing how her story is already starting to be shaped by others.
It's like she's almost resigned to it in a way. There's this part where she mentions a newspaper article describing her as a promising high school student who went missing after a night swim.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty sanitized version of events, to say the least. Completely ignores the complexities of what might have actually happened.
Right. It's like her individual experience, her pain, gets lost in society's need to categorize and explain things in a neat and tidy way.
Yeah, it's easier to accept a simple explanation than to grapple with the messy, unanswered questions, especially when those questions involve potential violence against a young woman.
Exactly. And speaking of violence, there's this shocking reveal later in the story. We find out that the narrator was sexually assaulted by Tom at the party.
Hold on. Seriously, that's awful.
I know. But what struck me was how the author presents it. It's almost an aside in the narrator's story, like it's not the main event, even though it's such a horrific experience.
That's a really powerful statement, isn't it? It's almost as if the narrator herself has normalized this type of violence.
It's like it's become so pervasive that it's almost expected, and it makes you question how we as a society perceive and address these issues. Are we doing enough to listen to victims and hold perpetrators accountable?
It's a sobering thought for sure.
Before we go any further, I want to take a moment to remind everyone about our YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
If you're enjoying this deep dive, you'll love our video essays and discussions over there. We go even deeper into the world of suspense and thriller stories.
We do. It's a great way to continue the conversation and connect with other listeners who are passionate about this genre. The link is in the episode description.
Now, getting back to just another dead girl underwater, there's still so much to unpack. We have these lingering suspicions about Zoe and Tom, but then there's also the biology teacher and those two men the narrator encountered on her way back from the party.
Okay, yeah, there are definitely more layers to this story. So what about this biology teacher? What makes him so suspicious?
Well, one of the students, Devin, mentions seeing the teacher's tent empty the night of the party. It's a small detail, but it's like, why would he be out wandering around when everyone else is at the party?
Yeah, that's a good point, especially with a bunch of teenagers out there. You'd think a responsible teacher would want to, keep an eye on things.
Exactly. And it's not just that. He tries to play off a proposal he made to Zoe as a joke, but it comes across as really creepy and weird.
Huh. So he's making moves on one of the students. That's definitely not a good look.
Right. And the whole thing just makes him look even more suspicious, like he's trying too hard to control the narrative.
Okay, so we've got the teacher acting shady, Zoe and Tom not being totally truthful. Is there anyone else who adds to this whole web of suspicion?
Well, there's Cassandra. Remember her? She admits to being alone with the teacher after the party.
Oh, right. So is that like a confirmation that something shady was definitely going on?
You'd think so, right? But then she insists that nothing bad happened, and her alibi actually clears the teacher of any involvement in the narrator's death.
Wait, what? Seriously? That's a twist.
Yeah, you think that would be the smoking gun, but it ends up leading nowhere.
So where does that leave us? We've got suspicions about Zoe and Tom. The teacher is seemingly off the hook, and I bet the police are just totally confused.
They are. It's no wonder everyone settles on the tragic accident explanation. A girl jumps into a lake and hits her head, case closed.
Oh, come on. That's too easy.
I know, right? But it's like the author's making a point about how we handle these cases.
What do you mean?
It's easier to accept a simple explanation than to deal with the messy, unanswered questions, especially when those questions involve potential violence against a young woman.
Yeah, it's like people just want to sweep it under the rug and move on. But the story doesn't let you do that, does it?
It doesn't. The narrator herself even predicts this will happen. She talks about how her story will either be forgotten, sensationalized, or turned into a true crime spectacle.
Oh, wow. Like she's already resigned to being just another statistic.
Exactly. Just another dead girl underwater. Her voice, her experience gets lost in the noise.
That's heavy.
It is. But there's another detail that really stuck with me. Remember those two men the narrator encounters on her way back from the party?
Yeah, the ones we never really find out about.
Right. It's never explained who they were or what they wanted, but the encounter clearly leaves her feeling uneasy.
Yeah, that was creepy. It's like this reminder that while we're focused on the classmates and the teacher, there's this element of random, unpredictable danger that women often face. It could have been anyone, anywhere.
And the story never tells us if those men played a role in her death or if it truly was the accident everyone believes.
So frustrating. It's like we're left with all these questions and no real answers.
And I think that's the point. Life and death are rarely black and white. There's so many shades of gray, and sometimes the truth just remains elusive.
Speaking of things that are interesting and thought-provoking, have you checked out our YouTube channel lately?
Oh, yes. Our listeners should definitely head over there if they want to keep the conversation going. We've got lots of videos discussing stories like this one.
We do. It's a great way to connect with other people who love suspense and thrillers as much as we do. And you can find the link right in the episode description.
Now, with all these unanswered questions swirling around, how does the story ultimately end? Does the narrator find any kind of peace, or is she just left adrift, forgotten beneath the surface of the lake?
It's like she knows she's going to become just another statistic, another unsolved case.
And she even talks about how her case might end up on a true crime podcast, or maybe even a Netflix series.
Oh, man. It's almost like she can see the future, like how her pain, her story could be turned into entertainment for others.
And that raises some ethical questions, doesn't it? Like, where's the line between raising awareness and exploiting someone's tragedy for views and clicks?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's a balance for sure. We want to talk about these things, but we also need to be respectful of the victims and their families.
This whole story has really made me think about how we view and talk about violence against women. It's like the way the narrator's assault is almost a side note, how her story gets lost in all the rumors and speculation.
It makes you wonder if we're really listening, Are we really taking these issues seriously?
And even the title of the story, just another dead girl underwater, it's like it highlights this chilling sense of anonymity.
Like she's just one of many lost in a sea of similar cases. And it's true, so many of these cases go unsolved.
It's heartbreaking. It makes you want to do something to make a difference.
Well, I think stories like this are a good start. They get people talking, they raise awareness, and hopefully they inspire action.
I agree. It's a call to listen more, to believe survivors, and to challenge the systems that allow these things to happen.
We can all do our part to make things better, to create a safer world for women. And I think
Yeah.
that's ultimately what this story is asking us to do, to not let her be just another statistic, to remember her, and to fight for change.
Well said. This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into just another dead girl underwater. It's definitely a story that stays with you. We encourage everyone to check out the full story on Readsy Prompts.
And for more discussions like this one, be sure to visit our YouTube channel. You can find the link in the episode description.
Thank you for joining us today on the Suspense Story podcast. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into the world of suspense and thriller stories.